can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Oban Elliott takes on Jonathan Micallef this Saturday at UFC Fight Night, Perth, Australia. And this is a good fight, good matchup between these two. You know, Oban Elliott, he is 27 years old, 6 foot, 72-inch reach, 12-3 in his career. Very technical striker. Really good front kicks, beautiful jab, throws crisp combos down the pipe, maintains his distance very well, maintains his distance with teep kicks, leg kicks, fights at his own range, doesn't really allow guys to dictate where the fight takes place. Good counters, just a very, very crafty striker, doesn't allow his opponents to lead, just kind of has them constantly, following him and reacting to him, and mixes it up pretty well with his takedowns as well. Coming in off of a very underwhelming performance against Seok-Young Ko, where he was a sizable favorite, minus 485. Ended up, was offensively grappling in that one, which was kind of weird. Offensively grappling, couldn't really get anything going with that, was getting reversed and tossed onto the ground, couldn't really get any respect or anything going in that fight. So kudos to Seok-Young Ko to have such a dominating performance against him. But outside of that fight, Oban Elliott, I feel like he's always had kind of underrated wrestling, especially for the UK. Had decent takedown defense heading into that fight, was defending takedowns against some decent wrestlers and Preston Parsons prior to that, and was just able to kind of keep the fight in his wheelhouse on the feet, where he's very crafty, very patient, able to kind of frustrate guys and then capitalize like we saw in his fight against Basil Hafez. Also a jiu-jitsu brown belt, does have some submissions on his record as well as KOs. Been KO'd twice, but he was on like an 8-fight winning streak heading into his last fight, which obviously he lost by decision. But good cardio, decent chin. Just very, very good all around, high fight IQ, doesn't really rush anything. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, I would say. Pretty patient. So overall, pretty good fighter. This is a decent test for Jonathan Micallef, who had the finish on Dana White's Contender Series. Got his shot in the UFC and had a very impressive performance over Kevin Jousset back in February. But he's a southpaw striker, fights really well behind his jab, has really hard body kicks that he was hurting Kevin Jousset with. I think he even dropped him in that fight with a head kick early in round one. But good striking, good straight left, uses his range well. Very, very well-rounded fighter, can finish the fight on the feet or on the ground. But I'm gonna go with Oban Elliott in this one. I just think he's the more technical fighter on the feet. He struggled in his last fight to keep it on the feet against Seok-Young Ko. I didn't think he expected Seok-Young Ko to have such success with the judo and getting takedowns from the clinch. I think he's going to learn from that one. I think he's going to look to use his wrestling defensively in this one, not so much offensively, not hang out in those positions, those clinch positions where he can, get thrown to the ground and controlled. I think he'll look to use the same game plan that he used in his past few fights, where he's using his range and his distance management to keep the fight on the feet, where he can kind of pick apart his opponents and just use his wrestling defensively when guys shoot in. But I do think he can defend the takedowns from Micallef. I don't think he's as good of a wrestler as Seok-Young Ko, who was, I wouldn't say that he's a specialist, but he definitely held a very high pedigree in grappling and judo, as well as the ability to knock guys out. So he was able to get a lot of respect on the feet, which helped him kind of, work in his entire game plan and get the fight to the ground as well. So I expect Oban to just be able to use his tools, his kicks, his long strikes to keep Micallef at bay. Like I said, defend takedowns as they come in, but I expect him to just be the one throwing, crispier combos down the pipe, not looping punches, kind of stabbing front kicks to the midsection to keep him at range. He does a really good job, like I said, of fighting at his own range and not really getting sucked into a firefight or sucked into fighting guys the way that they want to fight. I think that he's the better counter striker as well, as Micallef comes in throwing those, he throws decent punches, but I do think Oban will have the ability to counter those shots, land the better shots in the clinch if it does go there, and just not allow Micallef to really lead the fight and not really get anything going from a striking or from a grappling perspective. So I think Oban will have him constantly reacting, constantly guessing. I think he will mix in a little bit of wrestling just to keep that on the mind of Micallef, not necessarily trying to get him unless he feels like he can, and unless he thinks he has an advantage in that area. So I don't think he'll allow Micallef to really get any offense or any takedowns going. So I think he'll get respect early, dictate where the fight takes place as it progresses, and just win rounds in order to get a decision in this one. But I am going to go with Oban Elliott to get this one done. He is a small favorite, minus 135, which makes sense. I think this is a very even fight between these guys, but got to go with Elliott, just being the better striker. I think he's a little bit craftier, a little bit more technical all around, has the UFC experience. So going to go with Oban Elliott to get this one done by decision. Thanks.